everybody. Happy Saturday to you all, and welcome to the College Football Tailgate Show here on the Let's Talk Sports Network. My name is Alan, and as you can see, I'm still celebrating my World Series title victory. Rangers did end it this past week, 4-1 over the Diamondbacks to claim their first world title. But this isn't a baseball show, and we'll be talking all about that on Tuesday, so definitely check that out whenever it comes up. But yeah, we're going to be talking some college football today. We got the playoff rankings that came out this week, the first playoff rankings. We got a lot of big games to cover. And joining me, as always, every Saturday, Big Mike from the Man Cave. Mike, how you doing?
Man, what's going on? I know you're happy as hell. Them Rangers did their job. I mean, they look good doing it too. So it wasn't just some squeaky, getting by. They put it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely happy. It's a long time coming. The fan base, especially after what happened in 2011, this is something that the fan base desperately needed. So it was a wonderful, wonderful end here to the season. But yeah, focusing on as many people know, Scott's not going to be joining us this morning. He's going through a lot of health problems, but we keep Scott in our prayers. He did message me yesterday. He said he should be back this next week. So we'll definitely have Scott back in the fold for the shows next week. So, but just keep him in your thoughts and prayers for now. But yeah, a lot to go over, and we might have Jonathan Grishman coming on later in this episode. He hasn't got back to me yet, but his LSU Tigers taking on Alabama in what is essentially the game of the day in college football. The Tigers with a big opportunity to go into Tuscaloosa and knock off Alabama. Likewise for Alabama, if they want to keep their status as a potential playoff contender and maybe solidify that a little bit. Big game for them today as well.
Yes, it is. And like I was stating before, we were talking a little bit about LSU needs to really come out here and put a stamp on their season. And this would be a huge win for them. This would mean a lot for their QB in the Heisman race. And this will also tell you what Alabama really is. Are they really that big of a team? Are they not? Do they have holes? Can they be exposed? And again, me and you both are kind of on the same track of it could happen this week. You could really see an Alabama downfall, even though you saw it earlier. But this could really be one where they really get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Remember, they did lose at home earlier this week. The Longhorns went into Tuscaloosa in week 2 and knocked them off. So they are not unbeatable at home. So big one here. Jaden Daniels, as we kind of alluded to, he's in the dog seat for the Heisman right now with all the numbers he's put up, and with Washington kind of struggling the last couple of weeks. So this could be a Heisman moment for him, and we'll definitely get into that as we talk about the game. But let's start off here. We'll start with the first playoff rankings. The first playoff rankings came out this week. We'll go through each section here. We'll start with the top 6. We'll move on to another section and go over and give our thoughts on that. We'll start here at the top. The first 4 in. Number 1, unanimously, the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm sure you're happy about that, Mike, that being your team. Georgia, number 2, Michigan 3, Florida State, number 4, and then the first 2 outs, the Washington team we just talked about, and then Oregon at number 6, the top 1-loss team in this discussion. What do we think of the top 6 so far?
I mean, I'm okay with it. My whole thing is they're doing the strength of schedule thing. If they're looking at quality of wins and all that, Florida State should actually be higher than 4 because they have good quality wins. Their strength of schedule is better than both Michigan and Georgia. So maybe they should be up more, but I have no problem with how they place the 4, even though everyone's still saying, oh, well, back-to-back chance with Georgia, and they should just be number 1 until not. No, that, again, the turnover of players and how a team is different than it is in the NFL. It doesn't stay the same. Not a lot of guys are the same, so it shouldn't be that way. Mm-hmm. I think Michigan ultimately should be probably 2 because, I mean, their defense is ridiculous. I mean, they're not allowing teams to average a touchdown against them. That is something that's nuts. Even though they haven't played anybody, that is still huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge to me because, I mean, 5.9, that's their points against that. That is nuts. And I do like rounding it out. Top 6, Washington, Oregon with Bo Nix. They're strong. They do have that loss, but again, it's against Washington, and Washington's doing their thing. They're shaky, but Penix Jr., I think, still heading in the right direction. We'll see what happens today with their big game because they have one huge in the Coliseum. And if they can get that win and make it a big win, then they may jump ahead and might get in that 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot still could happen. Again, this is only the first playoff ranking. I agree with you. Ohio State, unanimous number 1. They have the 2 best wins in on their resume right now, going to South Bend and beating Notre Dame, and then of course beating Penn State as well a couple weeks ago. Michigan, yes, they've looked amazing on defense, not giving up a touchdown average through the season. That's something that's unprecedented, even through 8 weeks of the season.
Yes.
They're the best overall defense ranked, I believe, in the country. So, hats off to them there. Georgia has looked shaky at times, especially on defense. They give up a lot of rushing yards. We saw what Kentucky was able to do to them. Or, well, not Kentucky, but Auburn, really. Auburn was able to run up and down on them in that game. A big game today against Missouri. Remember, Missouri last year took Georgia to the limit in their building and almost came up with the biggest upset in of the season last year. So this Missouri team, and they got better in the offseason. They're a top 12 team. So this Missouri team can give them some fits. If we were talking about this, I know Scott was talking about this. We were talking about this last week. If there's one game that Georgia can lose, it's probably going to be this one. It's going to be either this one or Tennessee.
This game is huge, like you said. Last year, it was 26-22, I believe. The ending score was. A totally different team for Georgia. Mizzou added and got stronger. They look better. They can run the ball. They're looking for redemption here. They want that revenge. They want that. Because if they would have knocked Georgia off then, that changes a lot of landscape for what has happened. And they might not have won the national championship. They might not even been in the playoffs, depending on how everything else unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what Mizzou wants the most, besides just this win? They want to make Georgia pay and maybe get them knocked out of the playoff race. And if they can do that, that'll be their highlight. This is their year right now. Right here, this game.
Yeah, and I'm sure their coach is talking about that pregame as well. There's going to be a big one this afternoon. And if Georgia does make it past, I will say this right now, they are probably actually cheering for Alabama right now because I think Georgia matches up better with Alabama if they get to the SEC title game than they would LSU. I think LSU with their dynamic offense can actually outgain Georgia and outscore them a little bit. So if I'm a Bulldogs fan, I'm cheering for Alabama today. So that again, that's going to be the big focus. That game is going to be a huge focus in the show today. Big one there in the SEC. Speaking of which, going from 7 and I'll say 14, we'll go 7 to 14 because these teams are relatively still in it. Even though LSU at 14 has 2 losses, they're still at it with the teams that they have left. You got Texas at 7, Alabama at 8, Oklahoma at 9, Ole Miss at 10, Penn State 11, Missouri, we just talked about them at 12. Louisville, probably the biggest surprise out of all these teams at 13. And then, of course, LSU, as we talked about, at 14, still very much alive. For a playoff spot, especially if they get a big win on the road in Tuscaloosa today. So about from 7 to 14, what do you think of this grouping here?
It's just crazy that a 2-loss team, we could be talking about going into the playoffs. We're having a hard time saying a 1-loss team can make it in there sometimes. But a 2-loss team, but LSU, again, with their wins and how they're doing it and what they're doing, if they can get these big wins down the road, beat Alabama, win the SEC, all this, that changes a lot of things and makes a lot of stuff disappear. Those losses won't be relevant as much. When we were talking about the Oklahoma thing before, I do think they need to be up more. I mean, Texas beat Alabama, Oklahoma beat Texas. I think it was because Oklahoma losing to Kansas, but I think they should be above Alabama no matter what. And that right there, but that's a good group. If you really look at it, that's a good group of teams that could make a push. I mean, Penn State gets the win today against Michigan. That throws them right back in the fold of everything because their lone loss is Ohio State. And that'll put them right back up there. They take down, number 3. And that's just a lot of stuff. I mean, you got to go I'll say to 15 because I'm pretty sure Notre Dame's 15.
Yeah, Notre Dame's 15, so they're in the mix too.
There's a lot of stuff that could happen in this last 4 weeks that could change all that. And you could have any one of those teams from 15 up just jump in the playoffs.
And remember in the initial rankings when the playoff first started, in the initial ranking, Ohio State was 15 or 16 going in the first initial playoff rankings, and they ended up winning the national title. So anything can happen still. Just because of the rankings are what they are doesn't mean that they won't change drastically throughout the season, because a lot of big things can happen. One thing, like I said, the biggest surprise to me in this group is Louisville. We want to talk about how much the ACC has changed over the course of the last year. You had Clemson kind of find their footing a little bit towards the end, but losing some big games to Notre Dame and to South Carolina still made, I believe they still made the title game, if I'm not mistaken, but
ACC, yes.
ACC title game, I should say, not the actual playoff.
They made it. I'm like, hold on.
Game. But it's funny that because last year it was North Carolina and Clemson. Now it looks like it's going to be Louisville and Florida State, who, by the way, Florida State, look at how much they've rebounded the last 2 years. Yeah. And you talk about, that LSU game. If LSU continues to play well, and, that makes Florida State's resume go up as well. So they're rooting for LSU right now because they want to keep their resume as good as it possibly can get. So, that helps Florida State out a lot. And then, of course, Louisville with big wins against Notre Dame and Clemson as well. So, that puts them on the mark. How strange would it be to see an ACC title game between Florida State and Louisville of all teams?
Again, and from what we've seen the last couple of years, Clemson, North Carolina, the Hurricanes were there and hit and missing. But then you got, like you said, Florida State. That's crazy. The landscape changed so much. Clemson looking as bad as they do and all that. That's just wow. It's just wow. Because, again, we all went into this year, thinking, all right, North Carolina, Clemson should rebound. You got your stuff. It's set. This is what it's going to be. And then Louisville comes out of nowhere.
And just for reference's sake, neither North Carolina or Clemson are in the playoff rankings at all. Neither is Miami. So these are essentially your only two ACC teams in the playoff, is Louisville and Florida State here. So.
Yeah, and that's something. It says something itself with how these teams are playing. I mean, Clemson shouldn't be in the playoff ranking. So 4-4? They shouldn't be there. Something's going on over there. I mean, I was watching something the other day, and Dabo Sweeney went off on a fan because a fan said, "You're getting paid this much to go 4-4," and he went off on it, went nuts. I mean, I think he's starting to lose it a little bit because, again, this is what it is, and you're not supposed to do that when you're that type of school. Is the downfall coming for them? I don't know, but again, the surprise, like you said, Louisville being as good as they are, having the quality wins they have, and making that push here at the end. Like we were just saying, 1 through 15, anything can happen in the last month here.
Mm-hmm. And again, Notre Dame there at 15, couple big losses. Obviously, Louisville was one of them, and of course, Ohio State was another. You guys are hoping that Notre Dame continues to ride the train here, so it makes your resume look better. So yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, this is just kind of what they are. They're not in a conference, so I don't see them getting to the playoff at all, even with 2 losses. No. I think this is going to have to, and especially with what the ACC's doing now, they're bringing over the colleges that have great academic standards, like Stanford and you could say SMU as well. that are, to be a part of the conference. Does that entice Notre Dame in any way to join the ACC, or is that still, are they still thinking Big Ten?
I don't know. If they want to be prominent in football, you would think Big Ten's where they want to go. I mean, Big Ten football is a whole step ahead of ACC. Even down from the bottom up. I mean, just the way they play football is a whole different scenario. But again, if they're all academics and what they're doing, I mean, ACC, like you said, Stanford's coming over there. They have a whole slew of new teams coming there. The academic level is raising up. But, Notre Dame likes to be that, hey, I'm just big, bad, and tough by myself type stuff, which is ridiculous how all the rest of their programs are in the ACC or Big Ten or wherever they're at. They're all different leagues, and that's crazy. Like, I think their hockey's Big Ten, and then the rest of it's ACC or something like that. But they want their football to stand alone. Well, for your football to mean anything and be something, it's got to play good teams and do all that. Well, join something. Join the ACC. Join the Big Ten. Do something, because then you can be relevant every year instead of, oh, well, we only got one loss, so we're undefeated, and they're not looking relevant because all these other teams are playing good teams.
And they're playing one extra game in their conference championship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why people are shouting for Notre Dame to be in a conference. Speaking of which, Army joining a conference next year, going from an independent to the American, which is very fitting. So you have Army and Navy both in the American, which that makes that Army-Navy game mean a lot more. Not that it already didn't. I mean, Army-Navy it's in a class of its own. It doesn't matter, what fan of football you are. That Army-Navy game is always something special to watch. But now you put, if for some reason these two teams are good, you put a potential American Conference title on that. Oh my goodness. How much more crazy is that game going to get?
I mean, it's going to be nothing. Like you said, it's a game that everybody watches, whether they're into those teams or not. It's just a classic football game.
It gets a standalone weekend by itself.
And then what they do with their uniforms, their helmets, especially how they pay homage to different things and do stuff. It's just that game. You're like, all right, man. This is just going to be a triple option game all around. Everybody's going to be running the ball, but it's something you watch for all the other everything else going around it. But that'll be crazy if
it is one of the most entertaining games of the season is Army Navy, and again, it's a standalone. It stands alone. It's got a weekend to itself, and it means more, especially to those teams for pretty much anything in college football right now. So, I mean, yes, you would like to have, maybe Navy or RV be in that contention, but, I'll tell you, 9 times out of the 10, when you ask players on both squads, they're going to say, oh yeah, beating Army is more important than, going to win a national title, or beating Navy is more important than that. So, that's how deep that rivalry is. That's how great that game has been. Going on here, 16. We'll go 16 to 25. We'll go for the rest of the top 25 here. Oregon State, tough loss last week to Arizona. Scott called that, by the way. Scott called that on the pregame last week. He said, keep an eye on Arizona going at home against Oregon State, and they prevailed. Tennessee has been up and down. They're up there at 17. Utah with a tough loss as well. They're down to 18. UCLA's kind of hanging in there. They're doing it with their defense. Surprisingly, you don't think of that when you think Chip Kelly squad. USC has been a disappointment. They've lost 2 big games already. They have another one at home this week against Washington if they want to, kind of keep pace there in the Pac-12. Kansas, again, they had a big win over Oklahoma last week. They got a tough game today against Iowa State. Keep an eye on that game. Oklahoma State, Bedlam this week. They're at number 22. Seems like this last grouping here is trying to set up for both Texas and Oklahoma to stay relevant in that playoff conversation. But Oklahoma State at 22, they have the league's leading rusher, or at least it will be after today, because the guy who's leading it played this week already. So. Kansas State, they got a big game today against Texas. So there you go. There's there's the reason why these two teams are in the top 25 right there, if you're wondering. And then the last two, which are probably the more intriguing teams that are in here. Tulane, who was the group of 5 representative last year, and they're at 24 right now. And then undefeated Air Force out of the Mountain West. This right now, if the season were to end today, Air Force would be the group of 5 representative in the New Year's Six bowl games. They would be in the playoff if it was a 12-team playoff. A lot of good stuff here. But let break it down here. The last 10 teams, which teams stand out to you in this grouping?
What's crazy about the last group here is they're all either beat up, they all were top dogs, and then they got beat up. They, now they're trying to find their footing for, hey, we got to make bowl games. What bowl games can we get to? Where can we go? Because they're not making playoffs. But they all had aspirations. A lot of them had aspirations to do that. But where you were at, the intriguing part is at Tulane Air Force. Tulane being the representative last year. Air Force doing it on both sides of the ball, not just running the triple option. They got that defense that's prominent right now. And that's crazy to me to know that they could be, like you said, if it was 12 team, they'd be in the playoffs. To see a team like that do that is something else. You don't really see that. Yeah, I mean, when's the last time you've seen anyone relevant like that besides, I think, Army was, how many years ago? But God, man, dude, the last that's a fun group in reality because they're all still fighting no matter what. They haven't given up. They're fighting to get the good bowl games. They still have relevant games ahead of them. And you're just going to see them go all in. This is going to be the all-in group. They're throwing everything to the wind. Trick plays will come out. Different stuff will happen. And they want to win the rest of the way out because they're all fighting just to get decent bowl games. But, again, this is that don't look past this team group is what this is. You look past them, they will get that win on you. And Arizona doing what they did last week against Oregon State, Scott did call that. But we all knew. We all even said Arizona is that team. They get that big win. They've come close in a couple wins against big squads. And that's what they do. They go to shock you. And Oregon State better do something this week. They play Colorado in Colorado, which, again, they should get this win because Colorado's in shambles on what's going on there. But could it be another letdown? Are they still reeling from the Arizona game? Utah getting smoked by USC, but now they seem to be – can they bounce back, come back? I mean, the Pac-12 seems to be out of their realm right now. But still, these teams are scrappy teams that could – they're going to fight you every step of the way. So if your team's playing these guys throughout the last month, you're going to be in for a good game. You're going to be in for a hell of a game is what it's going to be.
We got JP joining us here from the UK. Any real upset on the cards today is his question. He's talking. He's predicting the Bama win over LSU. That game could go either way. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think LSU is going to only score 19. Their offense is too prominent to just score 19.
And Bama's defense isn't as good as it usually is.
This game's going to be in the 30s or the 40s. So bet the over if you're betting this game because it's going to be a very high scoring game. I feel today between LSU and Alabama. So any upset today? We'll kind of go into the schedule here. I think I kind of said, keep an eye on Oklahoma State today, or that they might, Oklahoma reeling off the loss to Kansas. Oklahoma State playing with a lot of pride today. Even though it is my own team and I'm going to be rooting for them, but my team could be on upset alert again. Especially with an emotional Cowboys team. It's the final Bedlam game, and it's in Stillwater, so not a good look for us. Also, Kansas today at Iowa State. That's another one out of the Big 12 that I like that could potentially be an upset. Maybe Notre Dame on the road in Clemson if Clemson gets their crap together. But yeah, we'll go through it. Is there a game right now on the schedule that you think could be a potential upset today?
I think the Kansas State-Texas game, that's going to be real close. It's in Texas, Kansas State. It's only a 3.5 3.5-point spread right now. I think that could definitely be an upset game, depending on Texas and how they are and Ewers and all that. LSU, I mean, we've talked about that one, but the Mizzou Georgia game, I think that could really set up to be an upset. Everybody's barking about Georgia and this, Georgia that, but again, we've already talked about Mizzou and that loss last year. You know that's stuck in the back of their head. They had Georgia dead to rights. They should have won the game. Now they have a stronger, better team. Can they pull this off in Georgia?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. A lot of, I kind of mentioned this earlier, Purdue at Michigan. Purdue usually has that one game where they break out and have a fantastic game on all three sides of the ball. Could this be that game against a high-powered Michigan team that, like you said, has been playing very, very well, especially on defense? But will it be a letdown for Michigan? Doesn't seem like it. Jay even mentions they have some draft eligible players, and JJ McCarthy. I wouldn't say he's a top tier quarterback, but he's doing just enough to make Michigan look really good on offense. Blake Corum makes that offense go. If I'm being honest, their running game is phenomenal. Yes. So.
And in reality, I'll go the other side of the ball. The defense is really what's making that offense go right now, because it's doing their job to the absolute fullest. Like, you can't do it any better than what they've done unless you just 0 points. I mean, they're doing exactly what they need to do, giving the offense good field position, making them have an easy time doing their job. But, yeah, that run game is really what makes that offense hum. I mean, JJ's JJ. He's a good quarterback. I can't say elite. I mean, he's probably going to go in the top 10, but I don't think he should. I don't think he's going to be that great. Like, in the next level, I don't think he's going to be all that. I think he'll just be one of those average, good quarterbacks, but he will not take it to, hey, I'm going to be on Josh Allen's status or stuff like that by any means.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a good enough quarterback, but, the team around them is really, really solid. Michigan has a great defense. They have a good running game, and it really was – and a good mind at head coach. Give Jim Harbaugh all the credit in the world for what he's done with that team. This might be his last year. There's a lot of talks of him, leaving for the NFL after the season again. But then – we'll just have to wait and see how that happens with Michigan going forward. Going through here, we'll go ahead and start with the slate of games today. Your Ohio State Buckeyes on the road at Rutgers. Should not be a problem for the Bucks today. Need to look dominant, of course, as the number one team. Is there anything with the team that you'd like to see get fixed up a little bit, maybe get polished a little bit more in this game?
The damn offense, man. Listen, they got to kick that shit in the fifth gear early. Not, hey, we're going to progressively act like we're a semi-truck and have 12 gears and just slowly get to that end where we're speeding down the field. They need to get going now. Because, again, Michigan isn't going to allow them to have that slow start. Granted, the two defenses will clash. It'll be a game like that, but you have to get going. That offense needs to start clicking. McCord needs to start firing on all cylinders right away. Harrison, Mbuka, get that run game going. Make this happen fast. And Rutgers, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not a team to mess with. They're definitely not. They played everybody tough. Everybody. They were in the Michigan game until half. And then Michigan did what they did. But, again, Ohio State needs to get going fast. They can't sit there and play this game every game from here on out, because that game at the end is what matters the most. If you're continuously doing this and McCord's still trying to find himself in the third quarter, they're gonna get waxed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, need to see a great start from Ohio State today. Rutgers is not a good team. They won't challenge you as much as some of these other Big Ten teams. So, like I said, the offense needs to get going early. They need to dominate on defense and put this game away early. Put this game away at the first half at the very least. So, big game, today You mentioned it, a potential upset here. Kansas State against Texas here in one of the early slates. Do want to mention no Quinn Ewers again this week. He's out for at least another few weeks. It's going to be Malik Murphy going for Texas as the quarterback. Not a good spot, but he had, one of their points is he has to have a big game today for the offense for Texas. This is a big spot here for Kansas State to potentially pull an upset, as we kind of talked about earlier. Again, the matchup predictor has Texas winning this game, but again, when you're without your quarterback, different things can happen. The big key for this game, in my opinion, is going to be Xavier Worthy in both the offense and special teams. If he gets that special teams going, and if the offense is able to work well, Texas should have no problem. But I still think that Kansas State has the offense to hang with Texas a little bit and maybe pull off the big upset this week. What do you think of this matchup?
I'm right there with you. And like you said, special teams. Worthy, if he can give that offense good field position and help Murphy out, that'd be huge. Just huge, because a game like this is something. I mean, he played last week, but the problem is it wasn't this caliber. You weren't going up against this caliber of a team. You weren't having the threat of an upset. But that field position is going to be huge for Texas. If they can have that, help Murphy out, and he continue to build on what he has going so far and try to better it, then, yeah, Texas should be able to do their thing. But that upset's always there, especially without your starting quarterback and everything else happening right now. And the only thing Kansas State has to go for them is this game right now, is beating you and taking you down. So you better go out there and not look past it.
And keep in mind, Kansas State, defending Big 12 champion, they made the late rally last year, to get past TCU, win the Big 12 title. Didn't get to the playoff. TCU still got to the playoff, but Kansas State got that Sugar Bowl matchup with Alabama, even though they got blown out. But they don't have the same guys that they had last year. You don't have that Juice Vaughn type of player that could be your breakout guy, but you still have enough good talent around to keep it going. Will Howard's not a bad quarterback. Again, it's all going to depend on what Xavier Worthy does in this game. He's the big X factor for Texas today.
Yeah, again, like you said, that field position and how that offense runs with that quarterback, with Murphy, is going to be definitely the big X factor.
Mm-hmm. Next one on the dock, number 10, Ole Miss hosting Texas A&M. Again, another potential upset here. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher will have this team ready to go. Ole Miss has been up and down in certain spots. They potentially can be a very potent offense. Their defense isn't that much. They did get shut down by Georgia, I believe. Or no, it was Alabama. They got shut out by earlier in the season. They do have Georgia coming up here in a couple weeks. So could this be a potential overlook game as they try to prepare for the Bulldogs coming up?
I believe so. But from what I've seen already and heard from Lane, he's not looking past these guys. He has his team ready for these guys, because that front seven for A&M, they don't let anybody run. And Ole Miss is a run-happy offense. Like, they love running that ball. And they're going to try to get it to their boy. But Texas A&M and how they do, number 45 just in that backfield. I mean, I think he has so many tackles for loss. Like, he's a big leader in all this. So A&M is prominent on their defense. Their offense is shaky, but still could be potential upset. Ole Miss looking for that three-peat with them. They're trying to push on through. They're trying to get past that Alabama loss and still show that they're prominent. But again, the potential is there. Lane Kiffin, though, he's got his boys going, so I don't see them looking past it, because they can't afford to look past anything right
No,
now.
not at all. Especially when you still have an opportunity to get into the playoff with how chaotic the SEC has been this season. So definitely can't overlook a Texas A&M team that'll give teams fits at all. Next one, we kind of talked about it earlier as we were going through playoff teams. Notre Dame on the road in Clemson. Notre Dame at 15. They still Probably not going to be a playoff team. They could still definitely get to a New Year's Six bowl though if they are able to win out. And people like you guys, of course, Louisville as well, are hoping that Notre Dame continues to win to keep their strength of schedule up. But it is in Clemson. Dabo Swinney's coming off a really frustrating week. We kind of mentioned it before. He was going after reporters, for stuff said in the media, and he's going to be fired up for this game. Is this another potential upset here as Clemson tries to knock off Notre Dame?
I believe so. I believe so because Dabo's got to do something. He has to do something. If he goes this season and has a losing record, that's going to be enormous, and that may change a lot of things coming down the pipe. But it's always a potential upset. You're going into Clemson. This is always usually a big game. Notre Dame Hartman has to keep them rolling, relevant. Like you said, maybe they can get to the New Year's bowl game, see what happens there. But, God, yeah, this is definitely set up for an upset. Clemson's going to come out and throw everything they have at this game. But I'll tell you right now, if they throw everything they got and they lose, this whole team may just be let down. And the rest of this year, that might tell what's going to happen the rest of the year with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a must-win for Clemson and Dabo Swinney, if I'm being honest. Because, yeah, like you said, if this Clemson team goes into next week with a losing record, all that confidence in Dabo is going to go out the window, and they're probably going to be talks of, is he going to get let go, or what happens to him at the end of the season if Clemson can't figure things out here to end the season. So it's a must win for Clemson, must win for Notre Dame to kind of keep themselves, within somewhat of striking distance of the playoff, even though they're probably already out of it. But must win for both sides. Should be an entertaining game otherwise. All right.
Yeah. I agree. Again, it's going to be a good game to watch.
Mm-hmm. Tennessee hosting UConn. That should be an easy win for the Vols here. UConn's not that good. They're still trying to rebuild all that mess that's since the Big East broke apart. Utah hosting Arizona State. Arizona State's been a feisty team this year. Yeah. They held Washington to just 15 points a couple weeks ago. This could be a potential upset, but Utah's defense would probably say otherwise. I think Utah still wins, especially since they're at home. But don't count Arizona State out just yet in this game.
I'm going to count them out. I'm going to say that this is nothing. Utah, listen, both these games you just talked about, Tennessee and Utah both need these games as build games. Mm-hmm. Build on what they already have and step up and use these games as, hey, we're not dead in the water here. We're still good squads, and put it to them. I mean, Tennessee should definitely put it to UConn. Utah will have a little more trouble because Arizona State's defense is feisty, and they're a little better than what we know. And I really think Utah's going to put it to them. They have to come out here. They have to win big. They have to look good winning. That way they can say, all right, cool. They say face. It wasn't just some glamorous thing. All right, we lost to USC, but they have to continue this road they're on. They can't just all of a sudden have letdown after letdown, and they definitely can't do it against Arizona State.
Right. They have to have a big game today. Next one, 2:30 Eastern. Air Force hosting Army. Air Force, 18-point favorite. They've been doing it on both sides of the ball, as we talked about earlier. Maybe not getting enough love from the playoff committee, them being only at 25, but them being 17 in the AP poll. They are undefeated. But a lot of things to say with this Air Force team. They are in the Mountain West, so they're not going to get many eyes on them, especially since they are out west. But hosting Army today, Army's 2-6. It just announced this week that they're joining the American next year. But this should be a blowout in all respects of the word because of how great Air Force has been, and they want to put some style points on. They want to show the committee that we are in, you can be a triple option offense and still be a top tier team in college football.
I agree. There's not a lot to say about this game, but yes, Air Force needs to show who they are, what they are, and get them style points and make sure people don't forget them because they are in that Mountain West.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next one, Missouri and Georgia. This is another huge game in the SEC. We talked about it last year. Missouri gave Georgia all they could handle at home, just barely losing in a 3-point loss at the end. Georgia hasn't looked as Georgia-like as they did last year. A lot of people upset that they didn't get ranked number 1 in the country for this first preseason poll, but who cares? It's the first one, and it's going to change regardless. But are the Bulldogs overlooking Missouri here? Because Missouri's quietly been one of the better SEC teams this season, ranked number 12 in the country.
Well, if you talk to all the Georgia fans, they definitely are. All the Georgia fans look like they already should be in the national championship and winning this right now. Oh, we're not number 1. Well, I mean, your strength of schedule is 100. You played nobody, almost lost to 2 nobodies. So let's bring that down a little bit. Your best player, which is a tight end, is out and not playing. Usually that's not a thing you say, well, our best player isn't playing. He's a tight end. It's not a quarterback. It's not the running back. He's not some defensive player. He's a tight end. That's usually not said in football ever. I mean, except for the Chiefs. Kelsey's out. Well, then there's problems. Chiefs lose. But again, I think Georgia's overhyped, period. I really think they are in a sense. They're a good team, don't get me wrong, but from what we're talking about, the fans look like they're looking past. I hope Georgia isn't looking past Mizzou because Mizzou has looked for this game since last year. This has been their game they've looked forward to. They know this is where they could be. If they can get this win, then what happens, Georgia fans? Do you fall apart? Is that the end of all? Or now are you like, oh, now we can't look past nobody? You shouldn't be looking past anybody because, again, Auburn and Vanderbilt almost took you down. Stop just looking past stuff. Stop believing, oh, we should be this, we should be that. Let the team play their games and hope to God they could win out and do what they got to do. Got a tough road this last month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Georgia is getting a little bit too overhyped. I mean, rightfully so. It's what the media wants to do. They won the back-to-back national titles. Every news outlet out there is always pro SEC, especially Paul Feinbaum. I can't stand that son of a. It sucks that we're going to have to move into the SEC next year because I just can't stand Paul Feinbaum speaking, let alone talking about, oh, Georgia should be number 1 because of last year, yada yada. No. They haven't looked good. They don't have Brock Bowers. Yes, they looked better last week against Florida, but Florida's not a good team. They're playing against a Mizzou team this week that, as we talked about, has gotten better. This is the game that they circled on their calendar. You mentioned it. This is the game that they are like, this is the one we're going to go in and put everything on the table for.
As soon as they lost last year, as soon as they hit that tunnel, they went right to the calendar and circled it. This wasn't something that they waited to this year and, oh, we're going to be good. No, they didn't care who the hell they were, what they were. They circled this game because they had them dead to rights. They had that game won. They should have won that game in a sense. So, yes, this is something where Mizzou's going to lay it all on the line. Every bit of what they have will be on the line, and they're going for that W.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jay, I always look forward to watching Georgia every year, but sometimes doesn't feel like this a dominant season this year. Yeah, their offense hasn't been really the same, and without Brock Bowers, who, again, Mike said, the tight end is their best player. Who says that nowadays other than the Kansas City Chiefs? What are they going to look like against an actual competitive team in Missouri without Brock Bowers? So this is going to be a true test of what Georgia's really made of. And again, Missouri's going to pull out all the stops to try to get this W today. So definitely keep an eye on this one.
I'll applaud Georgia. If they come out here and they bust Mizzou up, hey, rightfully so. But I'll tell you right now, if you let this game linger, it's not going to be fun for you fans.
No. exactly.
I saw what JP was asking about the Colorado stuff over there in the comments. I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, it's not all hype. To me, he has a lot of work to do. He's definitely on track.
The fact that this team was a 1-win team last year and they're playing as well as they are this year, it's an improvement for sure. It's a definite improvement.
He does have to work on the trenches. That's where they slack the most. Offense and defensive line. Once they get that figured out, and if he can get that figured out within the year, next year they're going to be good. They're going to be a good squad. This isn't going to be just some walk in the park. Hey, oh, here I am. We're going to lose again. No, they're going to be ones to fear, depending on whether his son comes out and goes to the draft or stays again. That'll be big. But they have the 5-star quarterback coming in 2025. So they got players already starting to roll in, big-time players, 4 or 5-star players. They just need to get them trenches worked out. They do that, it'll be a huge difference, and you'll see it next year.
Definitely. Moving on, Florida State at Pittsburgh should be an easy win for Florida State. Pittsburgh hasn't looked that good this year. They're 2-6. And then, well, for me, it's the big one of the day. Oklahoma State, the final Bedlam game for a good long while, at least, this season, as Oklahoma is heading to the SEC next year. Big one, Oklahoma State's going to go all out in this game. Oklahoma definitely has to have a rebound after last week's loss to Kansas. Their offense has to get going early. Better play calling from Jeff Levy, for fuck's sake. That last series, especially the last 3 possessions, when you're running a quarterback draw on 3rd and 6, near like the 30-something yard line, what are you doing? You need to get that first down. You need to milk that clock, go home with the W, keep your undefeated streak going, and let's move on. You allowed Kansas to stay in that game by running that draw, and you gave them a chance to go down and score, which they did, and ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So, I put this game solely on Jeff Levy for his atrocious play calling there at the end. They couldn't throw the ball much. Of course, it was inclement weather in Lawrence last week, but they couldn't throw the ball that much. Their running game finally showed up. This is the game that we said they had to run the football in. Well, guess what? They did. They ran it for over 300 yards in this game. They just couldn't, get the play calling right at the end, and it ended up costing them. Definitely need a bounce back game against an Oklahoma State team that's going to be coming at you with everything, because they are pissed off about this whole Bedlam situation. They're pissed off about us leaving and everything that's happened with it. So they're going to give everything they got in this game. What do you think of this matchup here, Mike?
Like you just said, this is going to be a hell of a game to watch. Everybody, a football fan, should watch this game because it's the last Bedlam. And Oak State is going to throw everything and the kitchen sink at this because they want that final stamp over the Sooners. They want that final win. Like, hey, we got it. It doesn't matter what happens from here on out. We got that last Bedlam on you. In Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel and them boys, they need this because they want to stay relevant in that 4. They better win, and they better do what they need to do because they were looking past Kansas and looking to this game. Bad play calling hampered that game. Like you said, it's almost like, to me, it's like the Browns game. The Browns should have ran the ball a bunch of times instead of trying to throw it, and they could have won the game. It was 2 minutes left. They had the win. Oh, here we go. Bad play calls. That's how that goes down. But, again, Oklahoma needs this win huge. And OK State, I mean, screw the playoffs, screw all that. This game right here is between these two teams, and it'll be the last time. Who wants that final stamp on the other team? That final, hey, this was the trophy, or this was the last Bedlam, and we got it. This is what you're playing for. If I'm either one of these coaches, either one of these teams, I'm not looking towards anything else. I don't care about the playoffs. I don't care about anything else. I care about getting that W over that team today for the last time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Historically, Oklahoma has dominated Bedlam throughout the course of the years. It was only the last 20 years, really, that Oklahoma State has shown, life in this series. Mike Gundy's done an incredible job with this team. He's come in and has completely flipped this program on its head and has made them a relevant team in college football. One yard away from potentially going to the college football playoff a couple seasons ago in that Big 12 title game against Baylor. They get through that. They who knows what happens. And a lot of people say they got the short end of the stick in 2011 between them and LSU on who should go into the national title that year. So, but yeah, Mike Gundy's done an incredible job with this program. He's done so much to transform it into a powerhouse in the Big 12. It got them a brand new stadium funded by the club booster and the program founder T. Boone Pickens. He's done such a great job with that group there. This team, this should be the flagship team in the Big 12 going forward. It should be because of what Mike Gundy's done with this program. The problem is Kansas State's in the same boat. They're starting to build their program back up. Texas Tech's starting to look a lot better. It's going to be a very competitive Big 12 in the next few years, especially now you've got Utah, Arizona, Colorado's coming in. Dion's coming in next year. So this is going to be a fun Big 12 conference to watch next year. But yeah, you want to get that last win in Bedlam because that's the ultimate bragging right. That's the ultimate bragging right. Yes, you made it to a BCS bowl, but guess what? You didn't win the last Bedlam game. So
and you could always hold that over. Oklahoma State can always hold that over you guys. Like, yeah, you guys might have did that, but guess what? We got this.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what the Rangers and the Astros were going through in their rivalry in the postseason this year. Is like, Houston won the division, but Texas won the American League pennant, and
that title.
I love Corey Seager. Corey Seager took a pot shot at Kyle Tucker in the parade last night. So everybody was saying what it's like if Texas didn't win the World Series. I guess we'll never know. So he took that. I love that he took that pot shot at Kyle Tucker. That's basically what this game is. It's like it's bragging rights. It's state supremacy. It's OU Oklahoma State. It is forever. Yeah.
This isn't just all till next year. This is forever.
It will eventually come back. It's going to take at least a decade or two for it to actually be resolved. But for now, this is the last one, and you want to be the one on top for the bragging rights. So, big game between these two schools today. Another potential upset here, Maryland hosting Penn State. Maryland's been a scrappy team. Not saying that they're going to, light the world on fire or anything, but Penn State still has a great defense. They're one of the top defenses in the country. They should be able to handle business today, but Talia Tagovailoa is a really solid quarterback. Keep an eye on Maryland. It could be a potential upset today if Penn State's not ready. I believe they have Michigan next week.
Yes.
So
don't look ahead. Don't look
at
a good squad. They are a good squad, so do not look ahead.
Mm-hmm. So thoughts on this matchup here?
Like we were just literally saying, you can't look ahead against this team. Penn State, you do have that big matchup to solidify really where you're at in the Big Ten if you're still going to be that third little brother here. But you cannot look past Maryland because they are sneaky good. They have played tough. They have played good. That offense is good. They got I can't think of the receiver's name, but he is a monster. Tagovailoa, he has thrown the ball around. That team is a good team. Penn State, again, can't be on rocky roads with here. Don't look ahead. Do not look ahead. Because if you do, even for a quarter, problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to be looking ahead at all against this team because they can take it to you. They've taken it to Ohio State a couple times the last couple years. So
Penn State doesn't have the luxury to look ahead. They took their L already. They have no luxury of looking ahead in any situation. I don't care who they're playing. Most of these teams have no luxury of looking ahead, if not all of them, because every week is a potential, oh, man, we didn't see that, but here it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one here, Virginia Tech on the road taking on number 13, Louisville. This should be an easy game here for the Cardinals. But, Louisville's one loss did come to Pitt, which is kind of a very disappointing loss. It's probably going to hamper their strength of, their resume a lot, because Pitt is not a good team. They did get the big win over Notre Dame, though. That's kept them afloat. They've won 4 of their last 5. Virginia Tech, though, they started off terrible. They were one of the worst teams in the country. They've now rattled off 3 of their last 4, beating Syracuse, Wake Forest, and Pitt. The tough loss to Florida State, but they can still play with the best of them, or at least they have the last few weeks. I still think Louisville should have an easy time here, but could they be on a little bit of alert here against the Hokies?
Yes, especially with what you just said. Pitt got a hold of them. And Virginia Tech's that team. You don't know. You never know what they are anymore, because they used to be relevant. They used to be, we know they're tough, but you don't know. You have no clue. And if Louisville does that look ahead or that shoulder brush, that could be the end of it. V-Tech could pull a crazy upset in the end, and then Louisville's looking, all right, well, I guess there's always next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to keep an eye on it, especially like we said, they did fall to Pitt early in the season, so you gotta be mindful of this team and not try to be overzealous here. We got our special guest of the day here joining us, Mr. Jonathan Grishman, wearing his LSU purple and gold. How you doing, Jonathan?
And I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. We kind of went over some of the games already, some of the big matchups. Before we get to LSU, Alabama, I want to ask you real quick, Georgia, Missouri, how we kind of talked about it, this Georgia's kind of overlooking Missouri here a little bit, especially like with the media and everything saying they should be number 1. They should be, still be the best team in the country, all this good stuff. Are they in danger, especially with Brock Bowers out, of losing today to Missouri?
They're in some danger. If I'm Georgia, Mizzou's offense is really good. The only question mark again is going to be, can Mizzou play defense enough to slow down Georgia? That's going to be the question. But if Georgia comes out sleepwalking like we've seen them do the majority of the year, they can get punched in the mouth by Mizzou. And that's going to be the question is we haven't really seen Georgia get punched in the mouth by a quality team. How will they respond to that? And Mizzou is going to be a team that they're going to score. They're going to move the ball on that defense a little bit. We've seen it very susceptible this year, more so than the last couple of years, that Mizzou is going to be able to push them. How does Georgia respond to that? It's going to be the biggest question. I think they will prevail, but this is going to be a very a close game that I think is going to catch Georgia by surprise. And I would not be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Mizzou pulls the upset up. But I think Georgia's still more talented, and they're going to be able to do enough. That's what this team of Georgia's done this year, is do enough. That's not a national title contending characteristic. You have to be, what we've seen from Georgia the last couple of years, dominant, and we haven't seen that from Georgia. So this is I think this is a game where they may not sleepwalk, just because the conversation has been, is Georgia good enough for a national title? Are they good enough this year? So at some point, the pride of a team has to say enough. And if Georgia says enough, we're going to go and be who we are. We'll see that out of them today. But it's not an easy game. This is not a cupcake. Mizzou's going to move the ball on them. They're going to score. They're going to score some points. So this will be a very intriguing matchup, very intriguing game. But I feel Georgia's still too good, and they're going to pull it out though.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State, final Bedlam game for a good long while. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, who would have thought that? I mean, we've seen in our time, we saw, A&M and Texas, absolutely, they cut ties. Now we're going to see that again because Texas is going to the SEC, but with the bad blood of Texas and Texas A&M absolutely cut ties when A&M went to the SEC. And now we're seeing Oklahoma and Oklahoma State cut ties with Oklahoma going to the SEC as well. I mean, that's just the state of college football and college sports, really, is rivalries don't really mean much. It's the almighty dollar does. But this is almost like a letdown game. And tell me if I'm wrong about that, Alan, because I know that the flair of this has not really been, all that great of this game anymore. Like we've kind of expected it to be. Oklahoma's been up and down at times this year. I think they've looked really good. Brent Venables has done a great job trying to, salvage what Lincoln Riley left. and he's done the job. It's going to take some more time, another year or two. Now, again, how does that happen with the SEC? Has to be the question mark for him over the next 2 to 3 years when they make that transition. But he's done a great job being able to keep this program at a high level, not the elite level, but a high level. Oklahoma State, kind of the same thing. Like they're in a little bit of a limbo right now where they're going to be at and how they're going to handle things moving forward with it as well. This is more of the question mark bowl. It's kind of I'm looking at it. It's just where's the future of these teams in the next couple of years, and so with Oklahoma State in the Big 12 and in Oklahoma going to the SEC. This is going to be. I kind of have a lean towards Oklahoma in this one. I think they've been doing enough. They're good enough. I think Oklahoma State has some questions still that just hasn't really been answered as much this year. Inconsistencies at times has really hurt them. I know you said the same thing about Oklahoma, but I think Oklahoma's going to do enough. And again, the pride of the rivalry, the last one, you want to have your name tied to the last Bedlam game as far as a victory for victories. And I think that's going to be the storyline here in this game. And I think OU will pull it off just by I'd give it by a 3-point pull off here that Oklahoma wins.
Mm-hmm. So next one here, and this will be for all of us here. Kansas coming off that big win against Oklahoma at home last week, going to Iowa State. I was talking with Mike earlier. This could be a potential upset here for the Cyclones. The Cyclones haven't played bad. I believe their only Big 12 loss was to Oklahoma. And probably Oklahoma State if they have 2 losses. But this could be a potential letdown game for Kansas after that high off of the upset last week. And Mike, I'll start with you. What do you think of this matchup?
I agree with you. Iowa State's playing tough all year. I mean, so they're going to give the Jayhawks everything they have. Kansas coming off that big win. Now, is this going to be a letdown? Are they still reeling from that? Are they even focused enough to go against a team like a scrappy Iowa State that'd be like, hey, here I am. But I don't know. I feel like Kansas will pull it off. Again, it'll be one of those games. It'll be feisty. It'll be crazy. They'll beat each other up, but Jayhawks get it in the end.
Just for reference, Kansas 3-2 in conference, Iowa State 4-1 in conference.
Yeah, and with this game, Iowa State's favored by 3 at home. That's you're almost kind of giving the points right there to it. So it's almost like a pick 'em in a way, just because Kansas, it's usually a 3-point swing when you give a home field advantage, and so. I think this is going to be if I'm Kansas and you had that huge win against Oklahoma last week, you cannot have a letdown. You can't. You want to define your program for the future. That win against Oklahoma means nothing if you lose to Iowa State this weekend. It means absolutely nothing. You threw all your chips on the table. You were all in that game. You won. And then you walked away and essentially lose it. And that would happen if you lose to Iowa State. You cannot lose to Iowa State. I think they know that. I think the reality of the situation for Kansas is they know they hold cards right now in their favor. If they beat Iowa State in Iowa State, which is a tough place to play. It's a very difficult place. A lot of teams, a lot of big name, big teams. We've seen Oklahoma lose in Iowa State. We've seen Texas at times that lose to Iowa State. That's a tough place. If Kansas can go in and win today at Iowa State, that helps redefine their program after winning against Oklahoma last week. I kind of feel like that is the focus of this team. I think they're going to do this. I think they're going to pull it out and they're going to win and get a huge momentum swing, even more so following that Oklahoma win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Kansas has the potential to do that. I could also see the upset. Like I said, Iowa State does play very, very well at home. This is my upset pick. I think Iowa State will hold on and knock off Kansas. I think Kansas is riding off that high and maybe overlooking Iowa State a little bit here. This is a 4-1 team in conference play, but they haven't really played much of anybody in conference. Their only loss being to Oklahoma. So,
and you're right. You could see it. I mean, Iowa State 3-1 at home. Kansas is 1-2 on the road. So they're going to have to fight some demons. Kansas is going to have to fight some demons. What's going to help them out is Kansas is 18th in points scored. They're averaging 35.8 points a game to Iowa State 23.9, averaging 28. Where Kansas is getting a little bit struggle is they are allowing 28 points a game to where Iowa State is averaging 19 points. So this is going to be a tricky matchup, a little bit of a battle here. And again, you're going to have to fight some of the demons on the road in a tough environment. I just think that you, like I said, you cannot lose this game if you're Kansas after what you did to Oklahoma last week. You cannot lose this game.
Mm-hmm. Transitioning here to some of the late games. The last one here, UCLA at Arizona. Arizona with the big win at home over Oregon State last week, pulling off the upset. Scott called that last week. Is it twice the charm here for Arizona, Big Mike, or does UCLA get the win here? Does their defense shut it down?
I think it definitely can be back to back. Do I see it happening? Probably not. I think UCLA's defense is real good, and I think they can shut down that Arizona offense, pretty easily. But it being at home, Arizona being the team they are, and coming off that high, they're not gonna just ride that high. I think they're gonna continue to play because they're like, hold on, we won, now we can continue. We can continue this win streak. So Arizona will be there, and they could definitely upset UCLA. The possibility is as realistic as it can be, but I think UCLA gets it in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a tough matchup for Arizona with the defense that UCLA has. Again, Arizona's offense is really good. They're 45th in the nation with 31 points a game, 30th in the nation with 441 yards per game. But if you look at UCLA eighth in the country, averaging 15 points. You have 15 points allowed per game. You're scoring 30 points a game, and you're averaging 466 yards per game. So again, a lot of the factors and the stats lean towards UCLA in this. Again, Arizona's offense is no slouch. They're going to move the ball and they're going to score some points, I think, on UCLA. But UCLA pretty balanced right now and playing really well. I think that's going to favor them. I think the UCLA will go in Arizona, go in to Tucson and be able to pull out a win there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think UCLA's defense will shut them down a little bit. I would not be surprised to see Arizona win. I know Scott said it last week that Arizona plays very, very well at home, especially when they're a home underdog. So definitely keep an eye on that game if you're a Pac-12 guy that watches football at 10 o'clock at night. So they'll probably be the only ones watching it. Another Pac-12 game, Colorado. Jay kind of brought this up in the comments earlier. Colorado hosting Oregon State, coming off that loss to Arizona last week. Colorado still has a lot of issues. You talked about it, Mike. The trenches are a problem for Colorado. They need some kind of stability in the trenches to have success. Oregon State's a really good football team, especially running the ball. Any chance of an upset here, or is Oregon State rolling them?
Oregon State should roll them. They should. It might be close at some point in the game, but Oregon State overall should take this game because, again, if they want to be relevant still, if they want to be mean something, or this season means something, they have to get this win after the loss they gave up last week.
Yeah, Colorado's they're really about 2 years away, and I think a lot of conversation you could say, I think with the transfer portal being what it is, you can get players and be competitive next year, but they're still about 2 years away. The limelight of Deion Sanders is going to carry this program, and they're going to be able to bring some players in, but they need time. That's the hard part. Again, even with the transfer portal, college sports still needs time. You cannot just flip the switch on and be like, well, hey, we're gonna be competitive now. That just doesn't work. Even with what you're trying to do, the rules of the NCAA don't allow that. You have to build a foundation. So there's still time for Colorado, but they need time to be able to do it and be able to get the players in the middle, be the players on the line. That's where the separator is, and we see that again. We see that in the SEC. What wins games in the SEC? They're the offensive and defensive line. Yeah. You have skill players all over the place, but again, we talk about that line, how it works. Everybody else is doing the same thing. The Big Ten, they've transitioned a lot with the offensive lines, and you see that's why we see Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State be competitive in the national spotlight. The Pac-12 is going to have to do that as well. They're going to have to get to that point. Colorado's going to have to get to that point to be able to be a competitive team, especially, again, they're going to be moving back to the Big 12 here soon. But that even more so, they're going to need to get that. I think they're just a little bit away from being able to be a competitor for a national championship. Oregon State, I mean, they're a much better team. They're moving the ball. They score a lot of points, 36 points, 0.4 points per game. Defense is pretty good too, averaging allowing 21 points a game. Score 439 yards of total offense as well. This team is going to be. I think it's not going to be kind of what we expected it when USC and Colorado be, but it's going to be pretty close. I think Oregon State's going to run away with this one. There's just too much talent on the field for Oregon State compared to Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Now on to the two big games of the night. First one, Washington on the road at USC. USC, disappointing season from them. Did get a win last week, although they did give up 49 points to Cal, for Christ's sake. That has definitely been their worst attribute this season is their defense. Their defense is god awful. They had to come back in that game to win it. And if at all, anyway, so it's like, how do you get 49 points up to Cal? This is a must win for USC. They have to win this game to kind of stay within the Pac-12 title race. But on the flip side, you've got Washington and Michael Penix Jr. This could be a potential breakout Heisman moment type of game for Michael Penix Jr. As Washington is still fighting to not only be in the Pac-12 title, but in the national title picture as well. And Jonathan, I'll start with you this time. What do you think of this matchup?
And I was going to say that's this is a must win for Washington to just stay in the conversation for a national title opportunity. You talk about an offensive game. It's going to be first team to 60 wins. I think you can probably see this way how both offenses are absolutely dynamic with really good quarterbacks that you'll see high draft picks, potentially high draft picks. In 2024 NFL draft. I mean, Washington, 9th in scoring with 40.4 points per game. USC is 2nd in scoring with 45.9. Difference is Washington's defense is 34th in yards allowed, points per game. 34th in points per game allowed, 20.6, whereas USC is 113th with 32.6. So you have an offense that averages 40 points a game going against a defense that allows 32.6 points per game. That is not a good statistic in your favor or against you if you're USC. This is you're going to see probably this is probably one of the best quarterback matchups we'll see all season. I know Michael Penix has been in these battles. We had Bo Nix versus him just a few weeks ago, but this is when we have the number one pick and potential number one pick of Caleb Williams. If Michael Penix goes out and absolutely obliterates USC, like I think we can expect him to do, you could put him in the conversation for a first-round draft pick too right now. There's a lot of conversation that he's not a first-round pick. He'll probably be a second-round pick. But if he goes and lights it up right now against USC, in which I think, again, he should with how bad that defense is, we could talk about Michael Penix being a first-round pick. So there's a little bit more stigma in this game for him, not just for your team, but for your future as an NFL prospect. And I think that's going to be the biggest factor with it is that, one, you have a much better defense in Washington that has been battle-tested more so than what USC has done in succeeding on defense. And I think that will be the factor that both teams will score points. Both teams are going to move the ball. But Washington's defense is better. They will get a couple stops here and there, whereas USC, I don't think they will. I don't think they're not going to stop Michael Penix and the Huskies at all. Washington will win this game.
Mm-hmm. Mike?
Listen, I'm shocked you said Penix is not a first-round pick. I'll be honest, I think Seattle takes him at 20. If he falls that far, I think that's where he gets grabbed.
That's not me saying that. That's
overall.
That's a lot of the media is saying that. I agree. Michael Penix has proved to me over the last couple of years that he should be a first-round pick. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about some of the scouts and media pundits that have been talking that have not put him in that conversation yet. But I agree with you. He is, to my book, from what I've seen, Michael Penix should be a first-round pick.
I mean, I'll even take it back to the Big Ten with him. He faced a lot of good teams, and he performed well. He had Indiana looking like they could upset certain teams when he was playing. I mean, and the media, we all know about the media and how they look at stuff and how they're just, most of the time, they're trash. They're just trash, and it's just, I don't know, it pisses us all off with how they talk. But again, this is going to be a turnover thing. Whoever gets the most turnovers wins this game because it's going to be field position with those turnovers and everything else because USC isn't stopping anybody. I mean, you could run out a high school team and they're probably going to score 28 on them. That's a problem here. Penix, every drive should be a touchdown. Should no matter what. If somehow USC can stop or turn the ball over, turn them over, changes the game big. Mm-hmm. But Caleb Williams being that potential number one pick, and again, I'm starting to falter with that. He's not showing that. I mean, he's showing he can, but again, you think a potential number one pick should be doing more than what he's doing, or the team should be doing more.
They had to have that Texas-like comeback that he had a couple of years ago against Texas to beat Cal last week.
That's what I'm saying. Stuff like that shouldn't be happening. But again, you can't put it all on him because it is a team sport. But still, Caleb Williams has all the attributes. I think he needs to stop acting like he is godsend and hey, I need draft stock or I need stock in teams that I get. No, dude, just go out there and play and make your damn money and shut the hell up. Because right now, it's to me, I would say, no, I'm not drafting him. You could take Drake May over him in a sense and be fine because Drake May can play the damn game.
I mean, yeah, again, you can't fault him for the defense's flaws. You can't fault him for the lapses at times with coaching calls. You know, he's on the offense that's averaging 45 points per game, almost 46 points per game. He's averaging, on the offense that's 328.3 yards per passing per game, 6 and 10. So he's putting up the numbers. Again, I agree with you. The diva mentality that he has is absolutely absurd. I agree with you 100%.
To me, that drives me down.
It should. It should. It won't. We know that.
That's stupid.
It won't. The talent's there, and that's what everybody cares about more than anything else. Is the talent's there. But as far as how this season's gone for USC, it's not all on Caleb Williams, though. Again, the defense is just absolutely atrocious. He has to score. I mean, he go back to and watching the Cotton Bowl last year against Tulane. I'm wearing my purple and gold, but I'm representing the state of Louisiana just as much as well. And I was representing Tulane Green Wave in that Cotton Bowl and watched every bit of that game. He had to score every possession against Tulane because the defense just could not stop them. So this continued this year. So again, if you're in the mindset you have to score every possession, well, you're not going to. You're going to get a high percentage, but you're not going to score. You're not actually going to score every possession. That makes things a lot tighter as an offense, and that puts things a lot more pressure for everybody on that side of the ball. And that's what we're seeing with USC just struggling this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like we said, it goes back to last year and how they played against Tulane. And that's kind of what their defense has been, again, giving up 49 points to Cal, giving up, the lead to Utah, letting them back into that game with a backup quarterback. A lot of things here, and they still have to play. Like I said, they got Washington tonight, and they still have to play Oregon. These are two very prolific offenses in the Pac-12, and as a Sooner fan, I'm loving it because of everything that happened here with Lincoln Riley. But it's. I could have saw. I would have told you. I was like, I saw this coming. This is exactly what Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. Offensive mindset, had great quarterback play for the longest time. Defense couldn't do jack with the side of squat, and that's exactly what they're doing at USC right now. So, I would say Washington wins this game because I think Michael Penix has a big night. This will probably get him. This will probably make it a two-man Heisman race after tonight. With Michael Penix has a big game. And of course, we'll talk about the other guy here in a minute because it is the big game of the day. It is the marquee matchup of the night. Jaden Daniels and the LSU Tigers on the road in Tuscaloosa taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Tide are ranked number 8. LSU's ranked number 13. Both of these teams still have a surefire shot to get into the SEC title game. Big matchup here. Jonathan, this is your team. This is your quarterback. This is his potential Heisman moment here against the Crimson Tide. What do you think of this matchup?
I mean, this is the first November, the first Saturday of November down south. Everybody is going to be, from down in the boondocks of Louisiana all the way to Alabama, Florida. We're going to be tuning into this game. This is the game that LSU fans circle every year since Nick Saban took that damn job. This is a little bit of a different feel, though. This year, for some reason, this year has a bit of a different feel where I think the pressure is not on LSU as much. It is on Alabama, where there's been so many question marks over the last couple of years about can especially with Georgia's success. And the pressure now is, when is Alabama going to get fixed and be back in that as the kings of the SEC? Well, right now they're nowhere near being the kings of the SEC. Georgia has passed them, and then you throw in the game in 2019 where LSU beat them and ended up winning the national title. I know Alabama's won the national title since then as well. So I'm not going to say LSU passed Alabama, but last year's game where in Baton Rouge, LSU stole it away from Alabama. Something that hasn't really been done. In 2019, LSU was just more talented with the players they had. Last year in 2022, that wasn't necessarily the case. But LSU was able to figure out and steal that game away from Alabama. Now this year, the pressure is on not LSU to do it again. And I know, in pressure on Jaden Daniels to be the first quarterback, and I believe I read this stat. I got to make sure I'm correct on this. The first quarterback to win back-to-back games against Nick Saban-led team at Alabama, or Nick Saban-led team since Drew Brees did at Michigan State when Nick Saban was coaching at Michigan State. He will be the first to Jaden Daniels could be the first to do win back-to-back games against Nick Saban. But the pressure is not so much on LSU. Yes, LSU has to win this game, and they need a little bit of help with Ole Miss to beat, or Alabama. I think it's Alabama to beat Ole Miss to get into the SEC championship into the SEC championship game. But this year just doesn't feel like it's all eyes have to be on LSU to do this job, because LSU's offense, being the number one offense in the country, averaging 47.4 points per game, the number one total offense in yards, 553 yards per game. There is a lot against a defense that is not typical Alabama defense. And I know there's still a good defense, but they've just kind of been underwhelming at times. And that's not a good thing if you're going against the number one offense in the country. And I know this is a tough place to play in Tuscaloosa, but I kind of feel like there's going to be a little bit more. The Alabama players are going to be on their heels a little bit more than what LSU players are. The question mark is not going to be, can Jaden Daniels perform? Can the LSU defense slow down Jalen Milroe? Which, again, the offense for Alabama has not been great either. So this is a matchup where things kind of sway a little bit in the favor of LSU, that they are a little bit more talented than Alabama in certain areas. And the pressure is more on Nick Saban, because if you lose to LSU in back-to-back years, the conversation of Alabama ever being the kings of the SEC should be done. And I think Nick Saban is now having to scramble and figure out, how do I get back to the top of the mountain with Kirby Smart there, and now losing back-to-back games against Brian Kelly. That's going to be a lot of pressure and a lot of question marks, and I think that's going to be a big factor going into this game, is the pressure of Alabama having to win this game, having to perform to get themselves in the conversation to go face Georgia in the SEC championship game is greater than what LSU is facing tonight as well.
And let's not forget, they've already lost at home once this year. They lost to Texas at home. So that's also weighing in the back of mind, as Saban says, is like, we've lost at home before. We can't lose at home again, especially not to LSU. Like you said, we can't lose to Brian Kelly twice in a row, because that's not going to make us look good as a college or as a group, because that's not the Alabama way. But now it's like you said, Georgia's kind of passed them up. They're the top dog in the SEC right now. So it's like, you got to get something going. Mike, what do you think of this matchup?
All the pressure's on Alabama. Every single ounce of it is on Alabama for all the reasons you stated. I mean, LSU, and listen, they lost twice already. So in their minds, they're not, hey, we don't have the pressure for the 4. We don't have this. We don't have that. We might be able to get in the SEC title game. But again, they're playing loose and free, and they're playing good football. And if they can just continue how they're feeling and what they're doing, like you said, Saban lost earlier at home. Do they ever lose twice in a season, let alone twice at home. So that pressure's on to make the right calls and do what he's got to do against Kelly because he lost last year. That pressure's on. Melrose, I mean, they didn't know who their quarterback was at the beginning of the season. Now he's taking over. All right, can he do something against LSU when LSU starts really rolling? Because I think they will, and eventually get that double-digit lead. And now is he going to be able to bring them back? Because that Alabama's defense is not whatsoever the type of Alabama defense any of us are used to. So once Daniels gets going and that LSU Tiger team starts scoring, pressure adds up even more. And when it pops, it's going to pop big, and Saban's going to deflate, and LSU's going to get this win.
The factor here for LSU's defense is one player, and our secondary has been on a lot of question marks, and the secondary has been torched. And the Ole Miss game goes to mind, and that LSU's secondary was just absolutely burnt. But there's one player that has to have a takeover game, and that is Harold Perkins. With Milroe being able to run the ball a little bit more, and again, he's going to run. He'll run a little bit more than what we've seen in the years past of Alabama quarterbacks. Bryce Young didn't run the ball all that much. Tua Tagovailoa didn't run the ball all that much, and we know Mac Jones couldn't run, so it didn't have to worry about that. Milroe will run a little bit more. Harold Perkins is the athlete, and I hope what we saw in the beginning of the year, especially against Florida State, where we saw Harold Perkins in a spy position at linebacker. I hope that does not happen. Do not put him in a spy. You have to use him to pressure the quarterback. You have to put him to pressure Milroe. Make Milroe make mistakes, and the only way that's going to happen is if he is thinking about number 4 hitting him. Yep. You have good linebackers that can spy. You have quick linebackers. Let those guys be the ones. Greg Penn, Whit Weeks, those guys, Omar Spates, let them be spies on Milroe, but you let Harold Perkins unleash him, make him attack, go get the ball, and use him like Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys, how they use him. Let him be the one that goes and puts pressure on Milroe. If you can do that, you can make mistakes, you will win this game. That's the factor in the defense that has to be, is let Perkins be Perkins.
You know what's crazy? I agree 100. You put your hands on Milroe, he starts second-guessing everything he's doing in this game and gets worried about everybody hitting him, or number 4, in case point, smacking him. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be bad decisions. He's not going to go through his reads right. A lot of things will change, and this game can get out of hand. You start putting hands on it.
Mm-hmm. And like I was said leading into this is the big Heisman type of moment here for Jaden Daniels. As this, if he wins this game, he could basically seal it. He could basically seal a Heisman if they knock off Alabama tonight.
Agree with that 100%. But this is for LSU as well. And I said, I know the pressure is on Alabama. My guy said the pressure is more on Alabama. But think about it this way, too, for LSU. You want to be – you're a national brand as far as college football. Yeah. You want to be back in the conversation of the elite, with the conversation of Georgia, Ohio State. And I know Alabama can still be in that for right now. But if you beat Alabama twice, back-to-back years, after so many years you didn't do that, you're not only back in the conversation of one of the elites in college football, but you're talking about your recruiting just gets a whole lot better. You're talking about your prominence on national TV gets a whole lot better. You put another Heisman Trophy potentially goes to Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly is now talking about one of the best coaches in college football. Like, there's so much that can be in positive form for LSU tonight if they beat Bama again in Tuscaloosa, because again it was pretty recent. But at the same time, everything just went so right the last time in 2019 when you had the best quarterback. You had 16 draft picks that were going around there. You had the best 2 receivers in the country in Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Everything was just going so much in your favor that it was just so much. You're still not the super talented team that you were in 2019, but if you go to Alabama and you beat them, my goodness, it just shoots you back up to the conversation of the elites of the elites. So yes, pressure is still on Alabama. But my goodness, there is still pressure for LSU. I'm not going to sit there and say there is no pressure for LSU. There is pressure that if you win, you shoot yourself back up in a higher level, and I think that should be the motivation, not just for Brian Kelly, but for the LSU staff and players. That hey, we can be back. And think that if LSU wins this, and let's say if they even win like they did last year, overtime, and they squeak it out in the 2-point conversion, they're still in the playoff hunt.
Mm-hmm.
They're still in the college football playoff hunt because you need some help. But now you had another win against Alabama on the road. That you're not out of it from there. And I think that's a factor too. So you got to make sure you got to take care of business. But the college football playoff hunt is still not over. And again, if you beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, well, now you can just throw a party and say that you're in the playoff at that point.
Mm-hmm. This has a very slim chance of happening, but how crazy would the college football world be if both Georgia and Alabama were to lose today?
I think they'd lose their minds. They don't know what to do if they get losses like that.
ESPN would go nuts and be like, "What the hell do we do? Who the hell do we talk about now?"
Well, it would be a code red in Birmingham, where the SEC headquarters are. It would be a code red. They wouldn't know what to do, because then you potentially lose Georgia. You lose an SEC. I mean,
are you really going to put your faith in Missouri to go to a?
You potentially could not have an SEC team in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
that's a fear, which we've never seen. We've yet to ever see an SEC team not be in the in a playoff or even in a conversation for a championship game. We haven't seen that in a long, long time. So code red in Birmingham for sure. And there's so many that'll be weeks and weeks of conversation on ESPN and Fox Sports, and everybody's sitting there saying, "Who's the favorite now?"
Exactly. I mean, at that point, Mike would be just like, "Yes, let give Ohio State an easier path."
Besides that, I'd love it just to happen, just to see the pandemonium go down, because I could care less about Georgia or Alabama, and I would love to just see it go crazy and watch everybody come up with all the excuses they can of why this happened, why they should still be relevant, why this and that. No, I'm just going to laugh.
Mm-hmm. Guys, as always, this has been a wonderful show. Obviously, we didn't have Scott today, but he'll be back next week. We got a lot to talk about as far as whenever, as the season goes on. But Jonathan, thank you for hopping on to talk Alabama LSU with us today. Where could the people find you at, and what do you got coming up?
You can check me out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm back in Fort Worth right now, handling some things with family and things moving around a little bit. And I'll be back in Arkansas Sunday night, and check out a lot of the work that I'm doing with my college, the University of Arkansas, Rich Mountain, coaching baseball with them. We're in the middle of our off-season training, so I'm pushing and working them boys hard right now as we get ready for our spring season. So check me out on Facebook. Check me out on Twitter. I keep saying I'm here soon. I'm going to start putting together some blogs and some video vlogs as well on my journey as a college coach. So be on the lookout and check all that out here pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do want to give some score updates real quick. Ohio State leads 7-0 over Rutgers. Texas leads Kansas State 7-0. Ole Miss leads Texas A&M 7-0. Clemson on top of Notre Dame 7-3 right now, so keep an eye on that one. Tennessee up 7-3 over UConn right now as well. So those top 25 teams are in action as of right now. So got a lot of good games coming up today. Mike, where can the people find you at? What you got coming up?
As always, Tuesday, Sports Madness at 6:30 on YouTube. The Man Cave 8172. We do our Relax Wednesday, talking about anything, everything, and nothing. 6:30 again, same place. I do a show with TED Talks every Thursday at 5 or 5:30. And again, I'm here with you guys every Saturday talking it up.
Mm-hmm. Definitely go check him out. Go check Jonathan out. Go support them as well. For me, you can find me on Twitter at AParalis30. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on the Sunday Night Football post-game show with Johnny Cruz and Rob Logan as we talk about the day in the NFL. Hopefully, I'm celebrating a Cowboys victory, but unfortunately, they go to the link tomorrow, so that's going to be a tough ask.
You mean you're done celebrating the World Series?
Oh no, I'm not done. I'm not done with that. Not by a long shot. There's the first one in 52 years. I'm celebrating all week.
2021 with the Braves. When the Braves won, I had champagne. I think it was like for a week straight. I had like a bottle of champagne for a week straight. So I mean, there was no stopping the celebration.
I mean, look at Will Smith. He's got a player three-peat going on now. So whoever gets Will Smith to this offseason, have fun. You're probably winning a World Series. We got our baseball show on Tuesday. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be recapping the Rangers World Series victory over the Diamondbacks. Plus, we'll be giving up our postseason season awards. All three of us, myself, Jonathan, and Scott, will be giving our own season awards to players, teams, and whatnot at the end of that show. Fun year of baseball, really fun year of baseball this year. So a lot to talk about, and a lot to talk about in the future. Some players have already announced that they're going to be testing the free agent market here soon. So, Cody Bellinger being one of them, obviously Shohei Ohtani, a lot of others. Marcus Stroman just announced that he's testing the market today. So
I'm about to say poor Nick. Losing Bellinger and Stroman right now. Poor Nick.
And he wants Juan Soto. Yeah. And then, of course, the NFC South and NFC East roundtable on Wednesday as well. And I might be joining here in the next couple of weeks. I might be on Good Teams Win, Great Teams cover as far as our NFL preview show here in a couple of weeks. So definitely keep an eye out for all of that. And I'm also moving in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to have a brand new setup here soon. So a lot of big changes. Anything else, gentlemen, before we end off today?
Hey, go Tigers.
I'm moving Tigers too. I'll say that.
I'll say go Tigers as well.
Like I say, I represent Louisiana teams. Go Tulane Green Wave. Top 25 team, Tulane Green Wave at number 24 right now. So go Green Wave too.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. There's a lot here for everybody. There's a little bit of something for everybody here on Let's Talk Sports. Tanner's done a great job. And also shout out to the man who made all of this possible. Rest in peace, Mr. Dan Harris, for bringing all of us together and creating this wonderful community. Without him, none of us would be here and none of us would be doing this. So wanted to give him one quick shout out here, and also shout out to Scott Cobe, who couldn't be on this week, but he will be back next week. So with that being said, have a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the football the next couple days, but until then, love y'all, stay safe. We'll see you next week, guys.